minute, and then we have a really small final test, based on the Gini inequality and discrimination, as I told you during the last lecture. Based basically on the previous, I ask you check at home some questions about discrimination, because we were out of time last time. Okay, basically, let's do it in that way. I'm going to open test now.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Maybe before the test, I have one question.
Yeah.
Due to the slides.
Yeah, of course.
So, and it's about Gini coefficient. So on the sixth slide, there is some statistics about Russian wealthy people.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But I wasn't able to recognize the same statistics on the third slide on the graph of Gini coefficient.
Yeah, because it's different source of this. That's all.
Okay.
That's all. Yeah, it's basic statistic, not from one source. It's from different source. I think. The statistics from the third slides. I mean, this is a graph. It's from article that measures this Gini coefficient for the Russia. Yeah, I just refer. And basically, the slides number 6. It's kind of mix of statistics from different sources, usually World Bank, United Nations statistics, and OECD. It's like, source of information about Russia from different sources. That's all.
Okay, and to see the same picture on the graph, we should put the line through the point, something like 70-30. So that
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
but you do not have these pictures on this on the test. Don't worry. Okay.
May I ask one small question? The slide number 18, and there is the last point.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand why it is so. So that employee discrimination does not generate a wage differential between equally skilled black and white workers. Could you explain that a little bit?
Okay. Basically, employee. Yeah, I mean, we have employer discrimination and we have employee discrimination. So basically, if we speak about employee, it doesn't really affect the wage differential, because it depends on the position, that this specific employee basically occupied. And we do not discuss it. If we speak about employee discrimination, it means consumer discriminations. It's usually dealing when the specific workers interact with the people, with the consumers. Yes, for instance, it can be how to say. It can be, for instance, people who basically sell something to you. Like, people who
I see what you mean. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I see.
But what you need, like small, really, maybe not small, I think it's fat hint for you. Think about how discrimination influence on GDP and wage distribution. And this is basically from the slides number 16. Because like really fat hint for you, before the test, because discrimination is not efficient way to redistribute the money. And because of it's not efficient, it should somehow influence on GDP. Because if we are not efficient to distribute the labor force, then something happened with our overall GDP. It's like Okay, the test is open now. Basically, it's no calculation with this test because and I'm going to close it within, I think, 15 minutes. So you have your time. If you have questions, you can ask.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Me and my colleague from Spain, the ones that couldn't do the debate, have another problem, and it's that the LMS doesn't work for us. So there's no possible way that we can do the test.
Why LMS doesn't work for you? Because you are.
When we connect to the LMS, there's no subjects that says currently studying. So we enter to the LMS and we can see the timetable, but we can see the subjects.
Okay. So could you give me a screenshot of your LMS?
Yeah.
Because you should basically. Okay, you cannot see any subject from LMS, or what?
No. I don't know how to upload it a screenshot here, but
okay, could you just a moment. You want to ask something?
Yeah, I again didn't understand how much time do we have, because one of my friend is not in the lecture right now, so how much time does he has?
It's like, as I said, 15 minutes. Like we started 11:17, then it will be like 32 minutes past 11.
40.
30.
So 11:30, right?
Just a moment. Okay, you need to go to the course, and it should be like
Извините,
Да, Николай.
у меня есть вопрос по тесту. Ну вот у
Maybe
меня...
in English that other people
Ah,
could.
Okay, sorry, I've totally forgotten about it. Sorry. So I've got a question about
Mhm.
the eighth task.
Just a minute. I want to open. Just a minute.
Mhm.
I open the questions because maybe fortunately I cannot do it. Remember by heart. Okay, the eights, as I understood. Just a moment. Yeah, I get it.
I have a question. Why the second statement is true? So if we have a case with a discriminatory employer,
Yeah.
so he hires less than optimal number of workers if they do not belong to his or her ethnic group. But
Yeah.
as I have understood, he just doesn't hire anyone who doesn't belong to his her ethnic group.
No, he can hire only in case if the price of the labor will be really, really low. Really, really, really low. Because it has like discriminatory component, like that based on their preference in the utility functions. Yeah, but it means that like less than optimal, it means that because of this discriminatory component, yeah, it prefer to pay more for like his or her ethnic groups,
Yeah.
instead of higher non-ethnics. And because of that, it's less than optimal. So it can be zero, it's less than optimal. It can be a small number, it's also less than optimal. So it's like a kind of irrational behavior in case of clear economic theory.
Okay, so 0 is also less than optimal. So
Yeah.
in any case, it works. And
Yeah.
for that case, he or she also has less less workers of their preferred group.
Yeah.
Because he or she thinks that they are worth more, right?
It depends. Yeah. Basically, it depends on the price of the labor. Yeah. I mean, it. Let's say it hire less than it can hire without this discriminatory component. Yeah, because for instance, they can prefer to pay more for the ethnic group, and in this case, yeah, the total number of employers can be lower than the optimal one. Yeah, but it can hire more of the ethnic group, or it can hire less of the ethnic group. Again, it depends on the price of the labor.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
I hope it's more understandable. Yeah, it's the concept is not so, I hope, not so difficult. Yeah, as I see all everybody were good during the test. Okay, I'm going to close test now, as I said, and we go. Yeah, I don't want that the last test will be really difficult, so it was maybe a bit easier compared to other one, because I understand that in the end of December you can be exhausted basically. Okay, could you see the presentation? We go to our last topic for labor mobility.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Basically, yeah, this is about decision to migrate or not to migrate. Yeah, and if we speak about migration, it's again information from different sources. It can be different basically theories that can explain the migration decision of people. And of course, like in mainstream economics that you study in high school of economics, you almost lie in so-called neoclassical approach. Probably, okay, do you have history of economic thoughts?
Well, it was like an optional course, but you would never guess on what subject. So during our studying of history, it was proposed to us to study a Coursera course about economic history and not to go to the exam. So
yeah, I get it. Okay, just to know, yeah, it's like mainstream economics. Now it's neoclassical approach that dealing with the rational people, with rational individuals, this utility function, macro and micro that you basically try to calculate. It's all like neoclassical approach. Yeah, with this utility function, with this Lagrangian maximization of profit and utility and etc. So like we studied some type of this series called human capital theory, yeah, when we can basically calculate the return to education, for instance, to the age, yeah, in terms of wages and etc. So basically this neoclassical approach, yeah, suppose that migration flows first, yeah, caused by difference in supply and demands, and basically depends on the composition of high-skilled and low-skilled inside the country. So the idea is what labor moves from country with a relative excess, so relative low prices, to country with a relative deficit, relatively high prices. I mean, because of course it's theory, yeah, in reality we may have a bit complex picture, yeah, because you know that, I mean, classical, yeah, really simple economic theory do not discuss involuntary migration. Yeah, so it's not about refugees and not about different natural diseases. It's only about like rational behavior and voluntary migration, like economic migration, yeah. So basically, the main idea that low-skilled labor force move from so-called developing country to more developed countries, and instead, yeah, high-skilled labor force, yeah, in general, move from the more developed country to the less developed countries because of the demand and supply of the labor, of different types of the labor force. Yeah, other theories, it's not neoclassical. Yeah, it's from sociological, basically area. It's so-called kinship and migration networking. The main idea that networks influence really much on the decision through the information mechanism. This is a like transaction cost. Yeah, if you know something about the country, about the host country, you want to migrate in this country because your transaction cost will be lower compared if you move to a country without any friends, without any social networks and so on. And because of this theory, yeah, okay, in the framework of the theory, it can be explaining why, for instance, migrants can prefer to settle in specific area of country, yeah, or can prefer to settle in specific district of different towns and city, yeah, because of this networking. And also we have so-called new economics of migration theory. In this case, not the individual, but household is the subject. And then the relocation, the decision to migrate or not to migrate, it depends on the household members. And basically, this is well suited for the migration to Russia. Yeah, if you read not the economic articles, but the demographic and sociological one, it's usually stated that, for instance, young men, yeah, who migrate to Russia for working, whole family, yeah, just collect to save the money to send these people for work, yeah, and then these people, like in Russia, you know, remittances, yeah, send the remittances to their home and support their family. So like migration is not an individual, but the household decision. So like some agreement between all its members. So if we go with the classical human capital theory, is basically, as I said, yeah, it's we can base the migration decision on the wage difference between different cities. For instance, we have like Moscow and St. Petersburg, yeah, and some people who currently employ in Moscow decided about the possibility to move in St. Petersburg. And so the decision about migration is really similar to the decision to educate or not to educate. So you have some cost of migration, then you have wage difference after the migration, and then you calculated your profit based on this cost, yeah, and based on this wage gap. And also, if we speak about costs, it's not only like physical cost, like money for tickets, money for renting, and something like that. Yeah, it usually can. I mean, it's really hard to calculate, but people try to do it. Yeah, they try to estimate and consider also the so-called psychological cost, yeah, like moving away from family, friends, from your social networks, from your nice, cozy social environment, and so on. It's also cost of moving. Yeah, it's like for the decision. So just for you, yeah, the main idea is again, yeah, you compare the cost of migration and two present values. Like theoretically, you may have two so-called earning stream. Yeah, one is earning stream if you prefer to stay in Moscow, yeah, and other earning stream if you prefer to move to St. Petersburg. And so, and then you have a cost of migration. And net gain to migration is like difference between these earning streams minus your migration costs. Yeah, so basically in the framework of this human capital theory, migration is just an investment to the human capital. Yeah, migration can be basically seen as education and something like that. Yeah, you invest to your human capital in order to go to other labor market, in order to get new skills and etc. etc. Yeah, and because of that, you just compare what you get if you decided to migrate. And of course, we also may have like personal discount rates as we discussed. Yeah, so like discount rate of the country and then your personal discount rate. Yeah, it's similar to the model of education. Yeah, it's idea of comparing of cost and profit. I mean, it's basically from your microeconomics course, you always compare cost and profit. Okay, there, like, what is the two main basically variables that definitely influence on the migration decision? First, it's age. When you're young, migration is a lot of easy because you have more time in the new labor market. So conclusion is simple, yeah, the costs are larger for older people because when you're older, is more problematic for you to migrate to other countries because you have family, you may have husband or wife, you have children, or you have partner, and like less possibility to adapt to this new environment. And then education. Basically, the idea is simple, yeah. More educated people will migrate with higher probability because for them will be higher possibility to find good job in the new labor market. Because if you have some specific skills or specific knowledge, yeah, for you, you can more easily, yeah, to find job. For instance, migration from St. Petersburg to Moscow, yeah, with good education is more profitable compared with not so good education, yeah, because when you migrate with a good bunch of skills, your chances to get a high-paid job will increase. So basically, what we can conclude from this? First, if wage rate in the host country or host region is higher, then the possibility of migration is higher too, because it's just simple, yeah. You have larger wage gap between these two regions. But, yeah, vice versa. If economic development in your country or in your region is improving, then for you maybe it's not really profitable to migrate, because if you calculate the costs, the cost of adaptation, the cost of migration, and the wage gap between these two regions, then for you it may be more profitable to stay in your home region. And again, yeah, simple. If migration is really, really expensive, then the probability to migrate will decrease. What is the problem in this basically human capital theory of migration? It provides no explanation for short-term migration. So if there is permanent earnings gap, a wage gap between the sending and receiving countries, then the return should never take place. But yeah, we have this short-term migration, for instance, for labor migrants. They earn some money in Russia and then come back to their countries. Because of that, we need to, if we study migration, we need to consider not only just money, yeah, but also non-material factors that influence on the decision to stay or not to stay. As I said, yes, psychological costs, social environments, and etc., etc. So it's not only about money, like more complex picture, yeah. So, and so this human capital theory cannot explain it, but the new economic theory, as we discussed, can explain return and repeat migration. Because short-term migration reflects the high uncertainty that involved in this migration process. First of all, expected earnings, expected wage gap, between two regions don't really match the reality. In this case, we may have further migration, like migration to the third region, or return migration. So, also, in case of incomplete information about alternative direction, the first trips can be trips to collect information. So people just do not go to stay in the country. They stay for short migration, they collect information about place, and then they return and prepare to the further migration, to the next trips, yeah? And also several trips can be made in different direction before the final choice. So if we speak about Russia, for instance, you may migrate to one region, then to other region, and then decided in what region you want to settle. So also, new economic theory suppose that, like, instead of human capital neoclassical approach, in the framework of this new economic theory, the purpose of migration, the purpose of working abroad, can be just accumulation of certain amount of money for further consumption or investment in home country. And basically, this is a case of this post-Soviet migration to Russia. Yeah, people come, earn some money, and come back to their country. Yeah, to live in their country with their families. And also, the migration can be not just for working, for labor. Yeah, it can be just to accumulate some human capital that really can give you a lot of return in your home country. Yeah, in this case, the classical example of this is educational migration. Yeah, you can go to the abroad for 2 or 3 years in order to get some human capital, some skills, in order to get some internship, because if you come back to your home country with this so-called foreign education, yeah, you have more chances to get a nice job. You can have return to this education in terms of wages and earning and etc. So it's like different purposes of this. So what other problem we may have with this migration? Because we may have non-random selection to migration. Basically, the migration decision is influenced, by the observed and unobserved characteristic of potential migrants. And there's the same idea that we discussed with the abilities, when we discuss how to measure the return to education. So this distribution of skills in the source country give you the composition, of workers in each skill level. So if migrants have above average skills, compared to the receiving countries, then we say that migrant flow is positively selected. So in other words, it's really simple. If we suppose that, for instance, Russia absorbs the better one, then we have positively selected migrants. If the worst one go to other countries, then it's negatively selected immigrants flows. And again, how you can compare it? For this, you need people who in host countries like migrants, and you compare the characteristic of those people with the characteristics of the people who stayed in the home country. And if people who migrated have, in average, have low, below above average skills, then it's negative selection. If it's above average skills, then it's positive selection.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Is
I
it?
cannot. Sorry.
Yeah. So is that selection similar for both countries? So the hosting country and the providing country.
I don't get the questions. Could you reformulate?
For instance, some professor he immigrates from Russia to I don't know, Austria. Let's say so. So it's obvious that his skills are above average. So it is a positively selected immigrant flow. But is it positively selected immigrant flow in terms of Russia or in terms of Austria or
No.
generally?
Okay. We speak about home countries, and basically, no. Oh, okay. This is like complex picture. We speak about host countries, like Austria, in our case. And we want to know, in case of Austria, do we have like the best people from Russia or not the best people from Russia? So in this case, like we speak about host country, but compare people who are in Austria, with people who are in Russia.
Okay, so it's about comparing Russian immigrants in Austria to Russian citizens in Russia.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
So like about selectivity, why we need to do this? Because basically in USA, they have many articles that say what we should do with immigration politics. And probably you know that immigration politics, like in Russia, yeah, can be different for different countries. And for instance, if we suppose that we have positive selected immigration flows, it's like can be one case of immigration policy. If it's negatively, I mean, it's rough, yeah, but of course it depends on the average level of country. We have positively selected migration flow from, I don't know, Uzbekistan to Russia. Yeah, but it's still the average level of these migrants can be, for instance, lower compared to the negatively selected immigrants from other countries. Yeah, you get the ideas, but this is just to understand what happened with the selection. Yeah, and why people decided to migrate. Because, for instance, when we have about negatively selected immigrant flows, we may say, okay, these people cannot find job in their country because they're not so well educated, and then they decided to migrate. It's one story for like sending countries, yeah. But if we have brain drain, for instance, like the better people go, then this is a other story, and then there should be other politics. Yeah, what to do in order to create circumstances that these people decided to stay in their countries, for instance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the boss way what to do with immigration policy. And this is like, again, non-random selection to migration. This is basically how we deal and how we can compare this. Yeah, for instance, why way to compare the average skills level? Then the ROI is basically the name of the man who proposed this. This ROI model suppose that we can compare the rate of return to the host country with the home country. Yeah, we compare to the rate to return to education, for instance, return to different skills. Like, and based on the result of this comparison, we may have different pictures, like positive or negative selection. And the key application of this ROI model about selection to migration is basically the relative payoff for skills across countries. Influence on the skill composition of the immigrant flows. And then when we understand the skill composition of immigrants' flows, we can basically estimate the impact of these immigration flows to the host country labor force. So this nature of selection basically influence on the composition, and then in turn it influence on the employment and wages of the home, so-called, let's call home workers, like workers from the home countries. So, and when, like we say that this composition, depends on skills, but what is the problem when we compare the composition of immigration flow in terms of skills and composition of like home workers, in terms of skills? We may have so-called transition of human capital problem. What is this? It's simple. The quality of your human capital vary over countries. What does it mean? That the education received in Russia is not the same that education received in Australia, I don't know, in Ukraine and Belarus and etc., etc. So when we speak about human capital of migrants, it basically includes two parts. It's so-called locally acquired skills, so some skills that people acquired in host countries. and some imported skills. So this education that people received in their receiving countries, in their home countries. So, and this transition of human capital depends on the educational system. If two countries have really similar educational system, then the transition of human capital will be easier. Just because, you know, like similar education systems. Yeah, and also basically articles show that so-called cultural and language closeness of the country also influence on the easiest of transition of human capital. It means that people who move from, I don't know, Belarus to Russia, for them it's more easier to integrate into the Russian labor market because like similar language, similar cultural tradition, and yeah, approximately similar educational system. We do not speak now about quality of education. We speak about like educational system, yeah, like how education built in the countries. But if we speak about other cases, sometimes education received in home countries not so applicable in the host countries. As a classical example, think about people who study law. Yeah, people who study law. Sometimes if you study law in Russia, yeah, it depends on the area of this law. Yeah, but you cannot really apply the knowledge of this Russian legal system, I don't know, to USA legal system because it's different legal traditions. Yeah, and sometimes people do need pass some exam, yeah, to prove their qualification. Think about medicals. Yeah, like doctors and etc. They need to pass exams to prove their qualification. And this is basically the process of transition of human capital. Okay, let's go further. So this is just basically the articles that measure, yeah, this transition of human capitals. It's like, unfortunately, we do not have this for Russian because of, you know, problem with the studies of immigration in Russia, that we do not have really good, reliable data source. You need to think what to do with the data, how to measure this immigration, etc. Yeah, but for instance, for USA, they have really nice data set that deal with immigration, and because of that, they can do many basically studies on this. Okay, what is the idea? First, yeah, when the immigration came to the country, they earn substantially less than their native-born people, like home workers, so-called, because of this human capital transition problem. But then, relatively earnings of immigrants rise over time because they accumulate this host country-specific human capital, and their earnings rise basically. And yeah, studies show that it's rise like there's really fast rising in first 2 years, or in first 10 years, sorry. And we do not have articles on Russia, but basically I based on my dissertation, and Okay. According to my estimation, if we speak about Russia, we need approximately like 20 years for migrants in 2000s, yeah, who moved 2000 to Russia, to converge in terms of earnings with natives. So for Russia, like in average, yeah, average migrants need to live like approximately 20 years in Russia in order to get, yeah, the average wage level of natives. So like for Russia, we have a bit difficult situation here. Yeah, because again, it depends on the skill level of these migrants. So we deal with the composition of skills. Yeah, we deal with that. And because of that, we may suppose what can be fact, what can be impact of migration on local labor market. And we have these two models. First, the classical model is Heckscher-Lin models. Small question, do you have international trade economics? Do you have courses on international trades?
I think it was like an optional course, so only
No, then.
only on macro, but it's not really about it.
Yeah, I mean, basically the Heckscher-Lin model is a classical model from international trade. Yeah, and basically people take these international trade models, yeah, and try to use it for this migration processes, yeah. This basic assumption of this Heckscher-Lin model is basically basic assumption for the classical theory. First, like in micro, yeah, SUD, economy produces only two goods with constant return to scale. We have two factors of production, high-skilled labor, human capital, and low-skilled labor. Then factors are perfectly mobile between industries. Then we have like ideal market. Then we have like constant price, and we have free trades, like, you know, a
So-
ponytail fairy tale country.
So
Yeah.
there are 6 general reasons why this model doesn't work in real life.
Yeah, as I told, yeah, like fairy tale country, like, yeah, pony country, like fairy tales with the free market and etc. Yeah, but basically this is like theoretical explanation how to deal with it. And then usually, basically people use it in real empirical articles to explain how we can suppose in reality immigration should influence on the whole labor market. And basically, yeah, when they calculated the impact of the immigration on the labor market, sometimes they based on the idea of the theoretical idea of this basically model. So basically, what is the main idea? That the main idea that impact of the immigration depends on the composition of immigration in terms of skills. Yeah, so it depends on the share of high skills in workers in the immigration and share of high skills workers in their home country. And usually people what to do, they basically measure the, it's like they measure the high skills toward the low skills, like in the composition of migrants, yeah, and these high skills toward the low skills in the home countries, like among the home workers, like native, let's call it, like native workers. Yeah, and based on this, we may suppose what happens with the price of the labor, yeah, and what is the main idea. So economies with high ratio of skilled to unskilled labor have low rates of return to skilled labor, and vice versa for other countries. And the theoretical idea is what? These high skilled workers move from high to low per capita GDP countries. And as low skilled workers move from low to high per capita GDP countries. And the results, like according to this Rybczynski theorem, is like from international trade too, that the relative price of skilled labor rises in rich countries and falls in poor countries. Yeah, because of these different compositions. And basically, it's not really, as you said, yeah, about real world, but like in some articles, they found that for some countries, this is the situation, yeah. It's like we have that, yeah, from less developed countries, people moved like high skilled workers. And then we have the other situation. But as you said, yeah, this assumptions is really strict. Yeah, other idea is so-called specific factor models, and this is more about reality because it's more realistic. Of course, it has also assumptions, yeah, but less number of assumptions. First, each product produced using high-skilled labor and low-skilled labor. Then the number of production factors exceeds the number of traded goods, and then factor return are not basically depends on the volume of production. That's all. Yeah, and what is the idea? In these specific factor models, basically we have two terms, like short term and long term. In short term, we say that impact of migration may be positive in the situation when these migrants are complements to production and negative if they're substitutes. And the same with the wages, yeah, it depends on the complements and substitutes. And the idea is following: what? If we have shortage of labor force, in terms of, for instance, low-skilled labor places, yeah, job places, then if we have low-skilled migrants who move to the country, they are complements to this high-skilled labor in the country, and because of that, we do not have really influence on the employment rate, no influence. Yeah, and in the same with the wages. But if high-skilled migration moved and tried to occupy the job places of high-skilled labor force, then they are substitutes. And then, according to the theory, the wage of the high-skilled labor force should basically decreases because we have what? We have additional supply of high-skilled labor force. Yeah, but according to the theory, yeah, in the long term, with these general equilibrium models, I'm sure that you study in your macroeconomics, these equilibrium models. Yeah, sorry?
We're going to have a midterm exam on that topic tomorrow.
Yeah, like steady path and something like that. You draw these lines, yeah, when the economy goes to the steady path. Yeah, like with this graph with the 4 parts of this, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so like you know that. Yeah, basically, yeah. So this is the main idea. So in the equilibrium, we have this like steady point, and basically the long-term effect should be in terms of quantities produced, but not in terms of wage and employment, because like in the according to your macro, as you have midterm, the economy moved to some stable point, and then the wage and employment should be so-called adapted to this new supply of the labor force. Okay, some small for you, just facts and figures. Yeah, according to this International Labor Organization, this is like before COVID numbers, because, you know, during the COVID, there are not so representative numbers of migrations. And I'm not going to show you because these numbers do not tell us anything, because basically borders are closed. Yeah, so like basically, okay, what is the main facts? That most of the migrants are males. Yeah, we have basically the largest migrants in the Asia and Africa because of basically their number of population. We have a lot of refugees because of different disasters, different conflicts, military conflicts, and etc. And the most problematic refugee crisis, it's like Arab countries, you know, and following by African countries and Colombia too. Okay. Some small, yeah, for you, for insight, yeah, so small information about Russia, what happened. We have two periods, like Soviet period and post-Soviet periods, like migration to Soviet area. First, it was migration from Russia to other countries for so-called post-war reconstruction, for industrialization of economies, and then in the 60s till the 80s, we have so-called return migration from this territory to Russia. So as you see, then we have really huge volume of migration from different Soviet republics to Russia because of developing different natural resources like oil and gas. And basically, we also have so-called temporary labor migration based on the different economic planning, so on. But two main flows is return migration from the Central Asia, and Kazakhstan, Baltic Republic too, and the migration to Russia because of these natural source areas. So if we speak about post-Soviet migration flows, there are two main flows. First, it's not like really refugees flows, but people who moved not because of economic reasons, but because of so-called like return migration of ethnic, like people who think that they're ethnic Russians, from post-Soviet space. And then from 2000s, we have so-called labor migration. It's like people from post-Soviet space who moved to Russia because of basically jobs. So like two different incentives of this basically migration flows. And because of that, we have two different composition of migration, two different adaptation strategy of these migrants and etc. So just some numbers, I'm not going to read it. If you're interested, the slides uploaded in LMS. So this is some small for you what happened in 2000s. It's some main stage of our migration policy in 2007, in 2009, and 2014, 2015. And basically now, I mean, I'm not here speaking about COVID because it's not ended yet, but now we have the same shrinking of immigrants, but not because of economic reasons, but just because of closed borders. But we can estimate the effect of this pandemic situation when it's end. I hope it's end in the near future. Okay, this is basically picture from not so newest article, but it's just a nice picture to understand what happened in 90s, with the immigration and emigration to Russia, and what happened basically in thousands. So like huge level of migrants in 90s, then some smaller, and then we have like huge number of migrants from 2010. And C is because of new migration policy with these patent systems, like patent, So like we see that migration policy changes, and we have like migration flows. And also basically you see that in 2008, 2009, we have like crisis, and because of the crisis, we have the shrinkage of the migration flows, and then the rise of migration flows. And for immigration, we have huge number of immigrants from 2011. Okay. Some trends, basically some numbers, what happened. like most of the people who move to Russia get Russian citizenships. According to the last census, basically in 2010s, we have last Russian census, like information about total population who live in Russia, and according to the census, approximately 11 million people were born outside of Russia. But be careful that in Russian census, they calculate only people who live permanently in Russia. It means that they estimate only people who live more than 1 year in Russia. So this 11 millions, it means that people who were born outside of Russia but live at least 1 year in Russia, and most of them from post-Soviet Republic. Larger part of migrants with residence permit, so like basically from post-Soviet states again. And the last year, about 6 million citizens of other country officially stayed in Russia, compared to the 12 millions in 2019. And this is basically deal with that many people just receive Russian citizenships, and though they do not consider as citizens of other countries, that's all. So this is some information for you about remittances. So like about amount of money that people send from host country to their home country. Basically, the top recipient countries of recorded remittances: India, China, Philippines, Mexico, and France. So it's not post-Soviet space, as you understand, yeah? But if we speak about share of GDP, look, for Tajikistan, for instance, 40% of its GDP, its remittances from people who work in different countries. For Kyrgyz Republic, is 30%. Yeah, and like for Nepal and Tonga too, and for Moldova. You see that like two main countries in post-Soviet space basically lives based on their money that people who lived in Russia, in Kazakhstan, and other countries sent to their home countries. And basically, what countries are source of this remittance? Basically, from what countries migrants send their money? Of course, it's United States, it's the largest country. Then it's Saudi Arabia. Yeah, then Russia, Switzerland, Germany, United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait. So basically, Russia, it's like top country. If we speak about amount of money that sent from Russia to their home country by migrants. Okay. This is just basically, international money transfers is based on the data of our central bank. Yeah, and this is basically analytical materials from our central bank. Yeah, the one graph shows you international transfer from Russian Federation to common independent wealth, it's like post-Soviet space, and then remittances from developed to middle and low income developing countries. Yeah, and you see that, you remember, crisis, you see the crisis, 2014, 2015, and of course number of remittances decreasing because of like people decided not to go to Russia because of small salary, and for them it's not so profitable to move to Russia, that's all. Yeah, so some information about migrants on the Russian labor market, the latest data, basically, we have a lot of illegal migrants, but the problem is, do not believe these numbers really by heart, because it's really hard to estimate the real size of illegal immigration. I mean, it's impossible approximately. Most of the immigrants work in informal economy. So they do not pay taxes. They basically work without any social insurance and etc. then migrants are overrepresented, so-called, in this less regulated labor market. Yeah, it's like some informal sectors, informal part of the construction, usually small-scale trade like market sales, street vending, and etc. According to different estimations, usually migrants dealing with wage areas, with low wages, with bad working conditions, etc., etc. But basically, it's not because of their migrants, but because that they're involved in informal economy. And as we discussed, informal economy basically deal with this type of working conditions and with the low wages. So like all people who involve in informal economy somehow deal with this wage areas, lack of payment, bad working conditions, etc. Like not only migrants. Okay, then basically, as you ask, it's not like information from one source. I just collected the information from different articles, from different empirical articles about migrants, in Russian labor market, just to show you different estimation about how our migrants' influence on the labor market and what happened with basically migrants in the Russian labor market. We see that most of the studies show that migrants have low wages compared to the natives. Also, studies show that those who moved in 90s, were more educated. They do not have problem with the low wages and etc. compared to the 2000s. And this is because of different composition, basically flows of migrants, because those who moved in the 90s were in average high educated, high skilled workers, and they're relatively easily adapt to the Russian labor market, and also there were high percentage of so-called ethnic Russians among them. And also studies show that there is negative effect on influence of migrants on the employment of the population, but not on wages. So no effect on wages, but negative effect on the employment. And it's just last words, attitudes towards migrants in Russia. Basically, like in 2000s, like the previous year, most of the people believe that government should somehow restrict the migration flows. And approximately 50% of population, like each second person, supports the slogan like Russia for ethnic Russians. I mean, probably you have heard it's like Россия для русских, So it means that nowadays in Russia we have a high level of xenophobia and kind of low level of tolerance. I mean, no judges. If you're interested, you may think why we may have this situation. Because it's kind of complex problem. Okay, basically we are done for today. Just introduction for you what happened with the migration, with labor migration in Russia. Just small numbers and series. And basically this is our last lectures. So thank you very much for attending and for participation, and I'm waiting your final projects. Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you for the course.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And today we have one more seminar, right?
Yeah, of course. I just say that we have the last lectures. That's all.
Okay.
So who are not attending, of course we have seminars. Who are not attending seminars, nice to see you and hear you. And for those, see you in seminars. That's all.
And on seminars, we're going to have discussions as usual,
Yeah, of
right?
course. We have two last debates on the on your seminars and the seminar after that seminar. Okay.
Okay.
Then see you later then.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I would like one more time thank you for the course, because I will have to visit a doctor today, so I won't be able to
No
participate
problem.
in a seminar. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the participation. Yeah, bye.